to Academy 2.0, where we focus on giving you the opportunity to learn from professionals from various fields to help you explore your passions and your interests. Hi, my name is Elaine, and today I will be interviewing Dr. Lofsted, who specializes in helping domain scientists manage their data to accelerate their time to insights. Today, I will ask a series of interesting questions about Dr. Lofsted's work for him to answer. This video will showcase the highlights of this conversation. But if you are interested in listening to this full interview, feel free to tune into our Spotify using the link in the description. Now, without further ado, let's get started. Okay, so we just first wanted to start by saying that we're really glad that you're here and we're really happy to have you here. And our first question is basically just like, please introduce yourself, tell us a fun fact about yourself, and introduce your area of expertise.
All right. Well, thank you for having me. My name is Jay Lofsted. I got my PhD from Georgia Tech in 2010. And since that time, I've been working at Sandia National Labs. My primary job focus is around data management kinds of things. So I got my start doing I/O libraries, which is how do we get the data from a large scale simulation into our big storage systems. And then since then, I have expanded out into all sorts of things, most of which end up having data at the core. That includes things like, of late, looking at some trustable machine learning and reproducibility and workflows and a lot of other kinds of topics like that. For a fun fact, I would say that I have done, I think it's somewhere around 10 or so cookbooks where I did recipe testing for a baking cookbook before its publication to help the authors out.
Oh, wow, that's really cool. So we wanted to first kind of, after your introduction, we wanted to talk about, I think you mentioned how you were a first generation college student.
Yes.
Yeah, and we find that really, really like inspiring. So how did you go from being a first generation college student to earning a PhD in computer science? And what motivated you to pursue this path?
Okay. There's I will do my best to not make that an hour-long answer. The short of it is that high school was never really that challenging for me, and I thought I wanted to get a whole collection of PhDs just because that was the hardest thing I could think of. And nobody in my family, having had even a college degree, could tell me anything other than you need good grades. And the question is what are good grades? What's good enough? And they said, well, you can do better. It's like, yes, but I'm enjoying what I'm doing and all these other activities, and these grades seem good, and you can't tell me that I need to do better. So I just did what I did. And in the process, it turns out my GPA for high school was a 3.2, which ended up being lower than it should have been, but nobody knew to tell me to do any better. And so that was the first thing that I learned long term was that really people want to see at least a 3.5, preferably higher, in order to qualify for a lot of things. In undergrad, it was really the same kind of thing. I had intended through undergrad to once I got through with school, because I was paying for it myself, go work for a few years and then go back and do grad school. What nobody told me until had been in industry for 9 years was that PhD programs are free tuition and you get paid a stipend to go to school. So I got free tuition and I got paid like $25,000 a year to be a researcher for grad school. Master's programs in general, you pay for directly, but PhD programs, you are a research assistant. And through that, you get paid. And if I had known that as an undergrad, then I would have just done it directly because I could have afforded to. Once I saw what the research side offered me, I realized that for my personality, that was a much better fit. And I realized I could let go of being fully qualified and highly desirable in industry to be able to move on to this research side. And honestly, it was the best career decision I ever made.
So would you say that you enjoy the research aspect more than the industry aspect?
They're very different. It's not that I enjoyed it more, it's that the challenge that I ran into with industry for my personality, again, this is a personality issue rather than it being a problem with one side or the other, is that I always enjoyed solving the new hard problems. And once I solved them, when you're in industry, you still have to then go through and do all of the things that you understand how to do for months, be able to make something into a product. And for me, that part of it was always just got more and more boring. And I wanted to basically get away from having to do that part of the job and then just focus on what are the new hard problems and how do we solve them. And the research side, that's really what it is. It's looking at the situation that we're in or going to be in with our technology, figuring out what good solutions are, building prototypes to test and prove them out, and then you write up what you learned and then share it with the research community and really industry as well. And then you move on to the next one, but you don't actually have to convert it into a product. And for me, that ended up being a better match. For people who really like to be able to point at something and say, hey, this is something I built, industry's perfect. And I don't want to in any way say that they shouldn't do that. For people that are willing to spend years building a reputation based off of continuous quality work, then the research side can also be extremely rewarding because then you have complete strangers walk up to you at an event and say, wow, your work has really inspired me. Thank you. This has been really influential in my life. And having those kinds of things happen really are rewarding as well. So it's more a matter of what do you need emotionally and what do you enjoy doing to decide which direction's better for you.
Definitely. Okay, so you mentioned that you have a lot of experience in the research side and the industry side, and we
Hmm.
want to ask a little bit more about like the research that you focus in. And you
Hmm.
said that like your primary focus was helping domain scientists manage their data
Yeah.
efficiently. And we were wondering, can you elaborate on the challenges that domain scientists face when managing their data and how your work addresses these challenges?
Okay. So there are multiple different kinds of data that people end up dealing with. We have observational data, which is something that comes from some measurement device. And the easy ones to think about are like thermometers that are measuring the temperature and wind gauges and rainfall gauges. And those things measure the physical world so that we can understand and do better weather simulations. Because you always have to start with initial conditions and know how things eventually turned out. Where I tend to work the most is actually on the simulation side, where we want to make a model that represents some either basic physics or some one of these kinds of systems. And then we run simulations to try to figure out either how to learn more from it or how to extend its capabilities. And those simulations, we make them very detailed. And because of that, the data is extremely large. And by extremely large, it's in the tens to hundreds of terabytes or even petabytes kind of size. And the first challenge I dealt with as a grad student was if we have 100 terabytes and we need to push that out of the compute part of the computer and push it into the storage part, how do we make sure we're doing that as fast as possible? Because the real goal of the computer is not to move data back and forth, it's to do computation. Do the physics calculations on the data. And so how fast could we make that? That was what my initial work was. What I've been working on of late, and this is really kind of an evolution over time, was how do I help scientists find things in those really large data sets? And the latest thing that we're doing is a tool that will both keep track of annotations that a scientist makes on their data. So if they say, oh, there's a storm in this part of the world, let me make an annotation into the data set that says at this time, there's a storm here. Or in the case of doing modeling for an engine design, you need to know when combustion occurs. So you'll look at the collection of factors and say, at this time step, at this location, combustion occurred. And that way they can then go back later and get back to that data directly rather than having to research for it. So storing all of this metadata is a way to help them accelerate their impact. So figuring out how to do that kind of storage and then make it so that people can do queries on their data based off of that, that's the current project we're working on.
Mhm. So I think like our last question to wrap up this
Mhm.
interview was about kind of outreach to students who are interested in your field
Mhm.
or extensions of your field.
Yeah.
And so we're wondering what advice would you offer to students who are looking to pursue your fields?
Um, the first one is we have way more work than any of us can ever accomplish. The big thing is find faculty or teachers and talk to them and say, I'm interested in this. Can you help me? There are opportunities for people in high school and in undergrad. And like Sandia, for example, hires both high school and undergrad interns to come and work in this environment. And it's a matter of if you talk to somebody and explain why you're interested and what you think you can do, then yeah, we might be able to hire you and then come work with us. Other places also do that as well. So If you can get started, stick with it. I won't try to pretend that things are perfect because things are not perfect anywhere, but we're working hard to make sure that we can include as many people as we can because, like I said, we need the help. And personally, I think this is the most fun possible job because I always get to work on new things. I always get to work with really smart people all the time. And because of that, I am always stimulated and having really interesting conversations and learning. And the learning part's really the most important because you just never stop learning.
Mhm. I think all of us learned a lot today from our interview, and we really wanted to thank you for coming.
Great, thank you. And I hope everybody else who's listening has an opportunity to participate because, like I said, I would love to get involved with people just to help them along because being that first generation college student made it really hard. And without having support, I was lucky to get through. Most people who don't have any support really can't. And it's not a matter of there's any flaw with you. It's a matter of the system is set up for people who know what they're doing to be successful. But people who don't know what they're doing, it's really hard. And don't be discouraged. Just make sure you ask as many people as possible, how do I do this? And they'll help you along. And then you can get and do this kind of job. And it's a ton of fun.
For sure. I totally agree. The value of asking questions and like asking for help
Yeah.
is very, very big. So
Yep.
yeah, thank you so much for coming. And yeah, thank you.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Lofsted, and thank you so much for watching. I hope this interview helped you gain more interest in the amazing field of data management. Please check out our Spotify via the link in the description for the full interview. If you are interested in more content like this, explore all the other videos we have on our channel. We hope to see you in our future videos as we explore other intriguing topics.